5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everybody, it's Ravy here. Lee is away this week on holiday, as you may have read on his blog. He's off skiing, so he asked me to do the Twitch this week, and I'm allowed to do it about anything that I like, he said, unless apart from Star Wars. So I'm not able to mention Star Wars or say that I like Star Wars or mention lightsabers, stormtroopers or anything to do with Star Wars at all. So I won't be mentioning anything about Star Wars for that entire broadcast. Star Wars. So today's Twitch is going to be about, I tried to think about different kind of games and something that would be a little bit different and would show a few different ways of doing new things. So I settled on a survival type game, where if you imagine the player is injured, is in a desert, is hungry, so his health is draining away. So as you're playing, it's gradually trickling away, and he needs to find food to eat, and pretty much the only food around is going to be from enemy soldiers which are around the area. So he needs to kill them and then take the food off them and try and get to the end where there's a ton of food. So that's the general idea. So I'm just going to show you how I went about doing that, and because that poses a few new things. Firstly, how do we drain the health from the player over time, and check for dying. And because it's a survival game, I don't want him to respawn, so we need to check when he's dead and say, you know, you've lost or you're dead or whatever. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is we want food to pick up. Now that's normally easy, and we can just drop a load of food down, but we want it to drop off of the soldiers, which is by the way guys, I know you said you can see the logo at the beginning, but I'm not getting any video my end, so just to make sure that you can actually see what I'm talking about. Obviously at the moment it's just my desktop and Steam, but just say if you can see that, just so I know I'm not saying a load of stuff I'm not going to be able to show anything. So just let me know, because I normally watch, I have to Twitch on my laptop just so I can make sure that I am actually broadcasting, but it's actually showing nothing. So if someone could just let me know in the chat if you can see it, that would be much appreciated. There's about a 12-second delay normally, so I'll expect it to appear anytime. So the next thing we want to do is make the soldiers, when they get shot, is to drop food, which they don't normally. They can normally drop their weapon, and that's it. So that's something else to tackle. So I'll show you how I went about it. So let's just fire up GameGuru. Again, if you guys can see me, see GameGuru or see anything on screen, please say, because I don't know whether I'm broadcasting video at the moment. Hopefully I am, but do let me know. So for now I'm going to assume that you can, and here is video and audio working. Great, thanks Paramount. This is very cool, thank you. So just loading the level. I was going to call it, because it's going to be like a survival game and you're hungry, I was going to call it the Hunger Games, but that's been done. So then I thought the Starving Games, but that's been done. So I thought maybe we could go for something a little bit English and call it the Slightly Famished Games or something, but in the end I went for survival anyway. Great. You can see and hear okay. Good. I was a little bit worried that I was rambling on to myself, which does happen sometimes. So here we are. Here's the level on my distance, and I'm at the wrong end of the level. So the idea is you start off here and you go all the way around here and get to the end, which is where there's tons of food, but there's not a lot of food at the beginning. So let's just see how it plays, and then we can work out, go through how it plays and how it works. So here we go. I've tried to make it look moody and adjusted like the fog, and I've adjusted the ambient light to make it look dark and kind of reddish and all that. So here we are. Here's the start. Now if you look at the health, it's 300 at the moment. You see how every 10 seconds you lose health. So he's 290 already. So let's go and kill this guy. This guy's dead, and he has actually dropped, as well as his gun, he's actually dropped some food, which is spinning around just to show us that we can pick it up. So we'll pick that up, and we've gone back to 290, but we've lost health again. This guy's dropped some food. So yeah, we're not going to be making it this time. I got shot far too many times, but you can see the general idea. You kill them, pick up their health, and try and make it to the end. So it's kind of a bit of a race against time, but also against enemies as well. So I'm going to start it again just to see if I can do slightly better than that performance. I'll go straight in. Cowboy thing playing, yes. Right, so shoot in, pick up the health. Shoot in. I'll give myself quite a powerful gun because I need to shoot and kill him quick. So I'm down to 215 already. 205 now. Pick up their house, the snacks. Right, so doing okay. 215 again, so gone back up a bit. Headshots. 225 and 215. $145, so might not make it to the end. Might not make it past these guys. So yeah, that's the general idea, because I'm probably not going to last the next one. And I died. And different to normal, you can see I've not respawned. It's come up, you've died, and that's the end of the game. So let's look at how we go about that, because normally when you shoot someone, they'll drop their gun or not drop their gun, and that's normally it. So how do we get them to drop something else? So what I've done, cheat slightly, obviously you always got to cheat, but to add new things you just got to look at it sometimes from a different angle. So I thought we've normally got them in groups of 2. You could potentially have maybe 3 nearby, so potentially 3 guys. So I would need 3 packets of crisps, and I would need to keep respawning those packets of crisps. So right at the start of the level, which I could pick these up because I knew, but there's 3 packets of crisps, and I reuse those all the way through the level. So whenever someone dies, I'll move a packet of crisps to where the enemy is, so you can pick it up. So if we look at if we look at their entity numbers here, if we hover over that, you can see that at the bottom there, this is entity number 1. This is entity number 147, and this is entity number 148. There's quite a big difference in those because, as you can probably guess, the packet of crisps was the first thing that I put in the level because I had the whole idea in mind that I was going to do this survival thing. So that's the first one I put. When I'd gone through the whole game, I kind of added a few more enemies, and then I thought I'm going to need more than one bag of crisps, so I stuck the other 2 down. So that's why the big difference in the numbers. So they're the crisps, and then the enemies, they're just not same as normal. They're just the usual enemies. The only difference is that there's a script, a little bit like I did the radar. There's a script running that's controlling everything else, because I always like to try and write things that they can work with everything else without you having to alter anything. So the enemies, they're just the same as normal. You can just put any enemy down, shoot them, and they'll drop a bag of crisps, which is cool. So I've got my usual green barrel. If I'll just do that, just so I remember where it is. But if ever I'm going to add a script that's kind of a global thing, I'll put a green barrel and add it to there. So the green barrel is changed to the new script, which is survival.lure, and I want it to be on always, so it's set to always active, yes, which means I can be as far away as I like, and that script is always going to run, because normally after kind of 300 units, 3,000 units rather, the scripts will be switched off to save running, you know, because if you've got 100 enemies in the level, you don't want them all running their scripts constantly. Depending on distance, they'll switch off. So always active means it will run always, because this survival script is pretty much, you know, is controlling the whole game. So we've got one script, survival, and then we've got these bag of crisps. Now normally you'll know if you've put down health or the usual bag of crisps before. Potato chips, by the way, if for people that are not from England, UK, whatever. We call them crisps, so I'm just going to call them crisps. So sorry about that. So if you put down a crisps or health pack, normally you pick them up, you pick that up and it's gone. It's because it's removed from the game. So obviously I didn't want that. I wanted to reuse the same ones rather than having to have, you know, one for each enemy. I just wanted to have a little bunch of them and then just reuse them. So I've got the survival script, and I've also got a script for these crisps, which is called food.lure. Normally it's health.lure that they're set to. So we're going to look at both of those scripts. We'll look at this one first because it's easier. So if we look at the normal health.lure, you can see that if the player is fairly close, so less than 80 units, and he's alive, then it collects the health, so it applies the health to adds player health, and then it destroys that particular entity, so it's gone from the game, which is obviously not what I want, because I want to reuse the same thing. So my food.lure is firstly right at the beginning, because crisps are normally really tiny, so I wanted them to be a lot bigger so you can see them. So firstly I'm in the init, which is run before the game starts. I scale each one up to 300%, and then in the main loop I'm rotating it round, which is why they spin on the spot. I'm rotating it around the y-axis, and then I'm doing the same check with distance, doing a different prompt saying food yum, and then I'm adding player health, same as normal, but then rather than destroying it, I'm just putting it a long way away, so minus 1,000, 1,000 up in the air, and minus 1,000, so it's way off the map, so it's not going to be visible to the player. So I just move it, and then once you've picked it up, it's gone, the same as it normally is, but we've just shifted it somewhere else. It's still there if you want to use it. So just bear that in mind when we're going through the survival script, that we've got these crisps that we just need to move back when an enemy dies. We want to set the position of the crisps at the position of the enemy. So let's look at survival lure. McDonald's Happy Meal, yeah, nice. I like McDonald's. The worst thing I had, actually, because I'm not allowed to mention Star Wars, so I won't, apart from saying, well, I went to see it quite a few times because I'm a big fan, massive fan, and I went to see it like the first night, and I come out the cinema about 3 o'clock, and unfortunately, well, I suppose it's fortunately, but it's kind of unfortunate that on the way out of the cinema there is a McDonald's, and it is open 24 hours a day, which is 3 a.m. and I was walking past it. There was no way I could walk past it, and every single time I've gone to see it I've ended up getting McDonald's, which is not good. Anyway, I've got absolutely nothing to do with this at all. So let's look at this script. I've labelled all the globals at the beginning just to give us a list. So first thing we need to have is an array which holds the list of the food, which is these 3 packets of crisps. So equals that. Those curly braces are, if you remember from previous broadcasts, that means this is an array. So we've got an array called food list, and then we're going to know which one to use, because we want to cycle through. Every time someone dies, we want to use the next one in the list, because we may not have picked up the previous one. But we only need 3, because if you've run too far away and not picked any up, you're going to be dying anyway. So food index we've set at 1, and how many are there? There's 3, but we can change that and have as many as we like. Then, as usual, with I've done this in the past with other scripts, when we to automatically apply all this to soldiers that are already there, or any enemy, to have it automatically pick all that up, we need to detect all those entities in this script. So because of that, this script, because it's probably one of the first scripts run, the first time it runs, it wouldn't have, all the other soldiers wouldn't have been created at the time. So I always have this little flag that says have we located them or not. So we can leave, because we can't do it in the init, so we're going to do it in the main loop. So we set that to 0 to say we haven't yet got the list of the soldiers. But then also, to tie up with that, we also, at the bottom there, you can see we're going to skip the first loop. So the very first thing we do here in the main is if it's 1, then we're going to skip out. So that means the very first loop is going to miss out, because then it would go through every single soldier, populate everything, and the next loop it would have all the information that it needs. So that's why I always skip that, because I'm going to be reading in all the soldier information. So this is how many enemies we're actually going to find. We're going to keep a count of how many that we've got in the level, and then we're going to actually have another array which is just going to hold the entity numbers for the soldiers, so we can check whether they're alive or not, because if they're not, then we need to drop a bag of crisps. But we also need to bear in mind that we don't want to be constantly dropping a bag of crisps. We only want to do it once. So we want to check that they're dead, drop the bag of crisps, and then get rid of that soldier from the list. So because we're setting it to a number, we can just set it to 0 afterwards, because as you know, entities always go from 1 upwards. So if we set it to 0, that'll be a safe way of saying this is not an entity anymore. Then obviously time is important, because our health is gradually trickling away, so we need something to hold what the current time is, so we can compare it. So every so often we want the health to drain out. So again, I've got another array, which is, so I could, these numbers I could have put in the script itself, but it's always good practice to not hard code anything. If you're ever going to play around with any number, or if it's anything that could be potentially changed, it's always good to put it in a nice readable variable name. So I've got delay before health loss, so it's pretty obvious what that is. I don't really even need to comment it, even though I have. So I've set that to 10,000. That's in milliseconds, so that's 10 seconds. 1,000 milliseconds in a second. So it's going, every 10 seconds it's going to lose some health. And then again, not hard coding it, I've put how much health is it going to knock off the player. So how much health loss is 10. So the player's going to lose 10 health every 10 seconds. And then because I've got a slightly different game over, because as you know, normally you'll respawn, especially in test game, if you die. And because it's a survival game, I don't want them to respawn, so I'm going to have a flag that's going to be set initially to 0. So game over, no. 0 is not the game over yet. But once the player dies, I can set that to 1. Then we know it's game over. We've already done the first loop. So then in the init, we're just setting up our little food list, which, if you remember, these three objects are 1, 147 and 148. So we're just saying which numbers these are. And then we're going to show HUDs. The reason I put that there, normally HUDs are on by default, but in this script, when you die, I'm switching the HUDs off. So when the script starts again, I'm just to make sure they come back, I'm just setting it to show the HUDs. HUD is heads up display, which is you're showing how much health you've got, what weapon you've got, that kind of stuff. So then, main loop, we're doing our little test if this is the first loop, and if it is, we're skipping it, so we're just going to return out. But then if we're not, we're then going to check if the player, because we've got a global, which is player health, we're just checking if that is less than or equal to 0. It normally might go below 0, but just to make sure, I always say less than or equal to 0. So if it's less than or equal to 0 and it's not game over yet, then we're going to freeze the player, freeze the AI, hide the HUDs, and set game over to 1. So that's just a different mode then. So game over becomes 1 as soon as we die, and everything's frozen, so you can't move anymore, the enemies will freeze, and the heads up display will disappear. Then next bit is checking if game over is 0, so normal, are we running normally? If it's 0, yes we are, then we're going to go to update health, which we'll go back down to in a second. Otherwise, it's game over, so we're going to put that "you died" text on the screen. And then we're going to check for food, which is another one down here. So, let's look at update health. So time, if time red equals 0, which is where we're going to store the time, and it's going to be 0 at the beginning, because we want to grab the time from GameGuru itself, how much time has passed. So if it's set to 0, we know that we need to read it. So again, we're using another global, gTime, which is the time passed in GameGuru. Then afterwards, we can do, if we do time minus that time that we've read, if that is greater than delay before health loss. Because if you imagine, if we read the time in and it's, let's say it's 1,000, so then we store that, and then 2 seconds passed, then G time is going to equal 3,000. That's 3,000 minus 1,000 is obviously 2,000. So if that's greater than this health loss, which is actually not, because that's set to 10,000. But if once it becomes greater than that, so in other words, when that time has passed, then we're going to hurt the player. I've set this to -1 because there isn't an entity actually hurting him. He's just hurting himself. And then we're hurting the player by how much health is lost. And then we're setting this time back to 0, so we can read it in here. I mean, really I could have put that line in, but I don't like duplicating code, so I just set it back to 0, so it'll do it back there again. And then it'll read in the current time again, and then go 10 seconds from there, and then it'll read it in again, do it 10 seconds from there. So that's that. Then it comes down, this is the check-in for food bit. This is the core bit really, which is going to be respawning the food on the enemy when they die. So first we're going to check, have we got a list of the soldiers, which we haven't at the beginning. So located soldiers is 0. Then we're going to set the survival enemy count to 0. Then we're going to, this is just a number I've made up, I'm just assuming no one's ever going to have more than 3,000 enemies in a level. If they do, it's not going to be much fun. So anyway, so I've taken into account that there may be up to 3,000. Then I'm just checking, going through each one and checking if it is actually a soldier, and it's got the soldier AI applied to it. So if it's not equal to 0, then it is a soldier. So we can then check on there, then we can go down here, just a safety check to make sure that this entity exists. It probably does by this time, but it's always best to be safe. So I'm just checking that that's not equal to 0. Then if it does, we can add one onto survival enemy count and store it in our list. We increase that number first because, as you know, Lua, same as GameGuru, arrays start at 1, not 0. So survival enemy count is 0 at first, so we want to add 1 to it, and then we can set it. And then also we've got an accurate number of how many enemies we've got. Once we've done that, we set soldiers to 1, so we never have to do that again. and then here's the main bit of it. So we're checking if the enemies are died now. So we're going to do a for loop. So it's going from 1 to the count that we've got up here. It's cycling through each one. And it's checking if that number is not 0. Remember what I was saying earlier about entity counts always start from 1 onwards. So we're just checking, is this soldier not equal to 0? If it is, then it's a valid entity. Then we can check, is his health less than or equal to 0? If it is, that means he's died. So I'm grabbing his X, Y and Z, so his coordinates, and then I'm setting the position of this entity. So if you remember, we've stored these numbers earlier, 147, 148. We're setting a position of this entity to the position of the soldier. Then when they're picked up, as you know, they're then set back a million miles away. So it's got this exactly the same look and play as the normal health packs and the normal food packs, but we can just keep reusing the same ones. So it drops it exactly where the position of that enemy is. Then it's increasing the food index. So the next time someone dies, it will use the next bag of crisps, and then the next bag of crisps. But then once it gets past the maximum amount that we've got, which is 3, so once food index is greater than food count, then it's set back to 1. So it starts all over again. So you can drop a maximum. You could have as many as you could have 10 to keep it safe, but because I've got groups of 2, I thought 2 is probably enough. But I just thought I'd have 3, just in case. Just in case your fighters got some other people to be aware of you, and they're starting to come into the fight as well. So I thought I'd have an extra one. Then the last thing that we do, because we only want to do this once per soldier, is we then set that list, the item in the list, to 0. So that means next time it comes around and checks, rather than check if the guy's died, because once he's dead, it's going to be dead always. So it's going to be constantly running this code. So that's why we've got that check. It makes sure it's not equal to 0. So we're just setting it back to 0 here, and then that's that one done. That is it. That's all it does. But you can see that those 2 scripts give us player losing health constantly, and it means the enemies can spawn something else, which is pretty cool. Because you think, if using this as an example, you might want an enemy that's shooting something to drop something else, rather than the gun that they normally use, and to drop that, you might want them to drop a rocket launcher, or you might want them to drop a key, which would be pretty cool. So rather than having a key on a table, you have to go and kill some guys and get the key off them. So you can see, all you need to do is have the key and have it somewhere, somewhere off hidden, and just do the same as what I'm doing with these crisps. Just spawn it in when that particular player dies. Spawn it in on the player. So there's many uses for it. It means you can have loot in effect, drop it, because someone dying, they could drop tons of health packs. They could drop any weapon you like, rocket launchers, another item, anything. So that's pretty cool. So that's essentially it. Let me just run through it again and see if I can actually do better. So I'm going to cheat slightly and pick up the 3 packs that are at the beginning, to see if I can actually get to the end, so you can see it all. If you've got any questions for this, write them up in the chat just while I'm playing through it, and I shall answer when I've died, which will probably not be too long. So I need to try and kill him as quick as I can and not get shot. That guy. So doing well so far, 340 health. I need to keep up. These guys are there. 295. 305. Will he make it? Ouch, I'm down to 165, 175 now. It's not looking good. $185. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Health's constantly going down, so I'm sprinting most of the time. 140. Just lost some. Whoa, 80. 90. This could be risky. I'm back to 100 health. There's 3 guys at the end, so I'm not sure. They're the 3 guys, so just take it. Reload! Yeah! So I did it. So I got back to 100, finished on about 100 health. And there's the end bit. And there's tons of food. And it doesn't end. Really, I could have ended it there, because otherwise eventually he's going to die. But I managed to complete it. So you can see it's a different kind of game. It puts a bit of panic on you, because you've got to get to the end. You can't take too long because health is draining away, and also you can't just charge in to the actual enemies, because they'll tear you down pretty quick, and your health is going down all the time anyway. So that is it, and thankfully I managed to actually complete it as well. So hopefully that was some interest and give you a few ideas, because I chose to spawn in crisps, but obviously, like I said, you can spawn in keys, weapons, anything. I mean, you could spawn in a house if you wanted to. That would be silly, but you could do it. You know, you could you could make anything appear. So it could be part of a quest. You could even have some magical genie appear when you kill someone. Literally anything. So it's quite cool. And I guess, I mean, really, you could do the reverse as well, because you could have it like if you're doing some magical game, you could have the whole way is barred up by rocks and everything, and when you kill the enemy, you could have all those things destroyed or move somewhere else. So there's a lot of things you can do. Thinking outside of what you normally do with the standard scripts, you can do many different types of games. So I'll just have a look, see if there's any questions. It's possible to download all the scripts you showed in Twitch sessions. I did put the radar one. I think actually radar's built into the product now, but I did put a link up for that. But the previous one I did. I put a post on the forums with and uploaded a zip with everything in it. So I'll do the same with this one today. So you've got the map and the 2 scripts, and I think everything. There's one item that I use that's you'd need the pack for, which is this archway. That's part of some pack. I think it's Death Valley pack. So if you've not got, it's not a massive problem, because if things are missing when you try and load a level, it doesn't load them, which is cool. It just gives you a little report saying which items are missing. So these aren't pivotal to the game anyway, by any means. So you'll just be missing those if you haven't got Death Valley pack. But I'll zip it up and upload this map and the 2 scripts, and then some other things. It would be nice to be able to set a weapon volume independent of others. So on a specific weapon by weapon basis. The pistol is very loud. That's a good point. This is a cheat, but you could. There's a program called Audacity, which is free audio editing software, and you can. Well, one thing you could do. This is a cheat, so I'm not trying to palm you off with this, but just as a stopgap thing, you could get the pistol sounds, stick them in Audacity, bring the volume right down on save them back out, and just that would at least save upsetting the neighbours next door every time you shoot someone. But yeah, it's a good point though. It would be nice to have to be able to change volume for, I guess, for everything. But yeah, on a per entity basis, set the volume of that. A good point. A good point. It'd be worth putting that on that list that we've got on the web of things, because yeah, that's definitely a good point. It'd be a nice to have for scripts as well, for scripting, changing the volume of things, for little cutscenes and stuff like that. I've got another question here. How would you make the food permanently raise other stats like speed, regeneration, jump height? That is a good question. That is a good question. Like speed, jump height. Could you do that? I wonder. Yeah, I think apart from regeneration, you could cheat, because you could do that in the script. You could do that in script, so you could say when you pick it up that you could check for a certain. Where I've done checking on the amount of time and lowering the health. You could do it the reverse way around. So put the regeneration in the game normally in the editor, set the regeneration so it doesn't happen, and then you could do it all in script. So you could say once you've picked up this item, it will set a flag that says regenerate, and it will increase the regeneration rate. You could do the same for health, because you can set the player health, so you could have him kind of level up in effect, and every time he levels up, his health regen goes up, and his base health goes up. But other stats, I don't think you could right now. But it's a very good point though. That would be very helpful to be able to do that in script, because that would be a lot of fun for RPG type games, and just generally powering up things, because like the ones that you've suggested, increasing the run speed and all that kind of thing. Because you could also make, if you was doing an RPG game, the more hurt the player is, you could slow him down, so his speed is decreased the more hurt he is, and then he can get it when he levels up. Maybe he gets more health, maybe he gets better regen, and maybe he gets a bit faster, or maybe he picks jump height, and again speed. There'll be good ones. Yeah, I think all those are very good suggestions. Slight cop out, but true though, is as you know from Lee, what Lee's been saying, is that one thing we want to do, as your questions have kind of show, is that we want to make as much as we can available, as in scripting wise, that rather than having things hard coded in the engine from a user's point of view, where you can't get at them, for things like speed, jump height and all that, it would be great to be able to access everything in script. So that's what Lee's been saying, where we want to move modules from being just C++ only and locked away, to being Lua script that hooks into the C++. So those modules you can see, and you can see exactly what it does. So then you could change that module to whatever you want. So it means you could take the base modules and alter it completely. So if you didn't like a certain aspect, or you wanted to change a certain aspect, you could just dump the what it does it now and just change it, or just improve on the existing one, or alter it to what you've done. So it's kind of what I'm doing in this script. But as your examples have shown, there's a few things that I can't yet do. I would like to increase the run speed, jump high, all those kind of things in script. I can't at the moment, but as I'm saying, my get out clause for that is that will be happening, because that's one of Lee's big plans is to move as much as we can into the Lua script, so we can see people's own add-ons for GameGuru, and things like today's survival game, and the radar thing that I did, and I can't remember what I did in between there, but there was something else that I did that I forget. But those kind of things where you end up with a different gameplay experience, the more we expose to Lua, and the more you can do it yourself, the more the whole community can come up with all these hundreds of thousands of different ideas and scripts that everyone can use. So yeah, so that is the plan. So that is today's Twitch. Hope you've enjoyed it. I should imagine Lee will be back next week, assuming he's not away. I don't think he's away next week. I think it's just a week. So yeah, Lee should be back next week. If not, you'll have me. But hopefully that's been of some interest, and I will see you guys soon. So take care all. Keep up the GameGuru, and I didn't mention Star Wars, not even once. So take care guys. Very well.